evening. I'd like to call the special meeting of the City Council for September 9th, 2025. Next on the agenda is public comment. However, since tonight's agenda is only the public hearing, we'll move on to that. Item 4A, public hearing, to receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed property tax rate of 0.363210 for 2025.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here before you for the next step in the process of setting the 2025 tax rate and to hold the public hearing. There is no action that will be taken today as the vote will occur on September 16th. Property tax is a critical and stable funding source for the city, making up about 1/3 of the general fund revenues. And unlike sales tax, which can fluctuate with the economy, property tax provides a predictable and consistent base to build our annual budget. Even at current levels, property tax does not fully fund our public safety. Senate Bill 2 in 2019 modernized Texas truth in taxation process with standardized notices, an online tax rate database calculator, and record vote requirements, which we did earlier, and then our firm adoption deadlines. It also establishes 2 key benchmarks, our no new revenue rate, which keeps M&O revenue from existing property roughly flat, excluding new constructions and adjustments for refunds and corrections, and the voter approved rate, which allows up to 3.5% for M&O growth. And then anything higher than that would require an election. On the other side, we have our INS debt rate, which is calculated separately and is not subject to that 3.5% cap. There we go. We have 3 entities that help participate in the truth and taxation process. The first being our Fort Bend Central Appraisal District, which appraises and certifies property tax values in the county. The second is our Fort Bend County Tax Assessor and Collector, which serves as the city's designated tax assessor collector and also prepares our truth and taxation calculations. And lastly, we have us, the City of Sugar Land, which sets the tax rate to support and adopt our adopted budget. Property tax is made up of 2 parts. We have our maintenance and operations, which funds our day-to-day services, specifically things like police, fire, streets, parks, and then our INS rate, or interest and sinking, or we also call it the debt service rate, which pays the principal and interest and fees on tax-supported bonds. Sugar Land is committed to keeping the property tax burden low while fully funding city services. Among the Texas cities over 100,000 population, Sugar Land has one of the lowest property tax rates, and this just shows our comparison to cities in the surrounding area. Sugar Land's interest and portion is modest, reflecting our disciplined debt management, as well as the O&M rate is low to ensure that we can still maintain our services. This illustration helps show how the Sugar Land's history of responsible tax relief while balancing the preservation of city's ability to fund services and issue debt. Here you can see how the average taxable value of the homestead has changed over time and how the city's homestead exemption has reduced the value before we even apply the tax rate. The over 65 exemption would be added on this. This is our certified values for 2025, which came in about $21.3 billion. The current city's nominal property tax rate is currently at 0.353210. The no new revenue rate, which once again generates the same revenue as last year, excluding the new property, this rate would be 0.367991. And the voter approval rate is at 0.377063. Staff recommends adopting a rate of 0.363210, which is below the voter approval rate and balances the need to fund essential city services while limiting the tax burden on the residents. And I will say that that's rate is per 100 value. The total tax rate recommended, as stated, was 0.363210. A portion of this tax rate is being temporarily allocated to the M&O, and then over the next 5 years, the shift will be transitioned back to the debt service to fund the 2024 voter approval bonds. This approach allows the city to have smooth the impact on taxpayers while ensuring capacity to meet future debt obligations. This highlights the impact on the average resident. The proposed rate would be a total monthly increase of about $7.92. This is broken out to be $4.17 from the reevaluation of homes, the 0.210 from debt service, and then 1.65, so $1.65 for the M&O tax rate per month. And the actual value will vary depending on each homeowner's individual property value. So the next steps in this process is we will, as soon as I sit down, hold the public hearing and then announce the date and time of the tax rate, which is September 16th, which will follow after we adopt the 26 budget. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shalay. Residents have the right to criticize policies, procedures, programs, and services, but speakers must stick to the time limits and stay on topic. Please be respectful and courteous to council, staff, other speakers, and those in attendance at the meeting. Your cooperation is appreciated. The public hearing is now open. The first speaker is Ashok Dasgupta.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. My name is Ashok Dasgupta, and I rise today as a concerned citizen of Sugar Land. The newly proposed tax increase places a burden on those least able to bear it. Retirees like me, pensioners and residents on fixed incomes, for them, even a modest rise in taxes can mean hard choices, medicine or groceries, utility bills or essentials. What makes this increase more difficult is the city's own lack of fiscal restraint. Public records show that a large share of the operating budget is consumed by administrative expenses. At the last council meeting, Councilman Sanjoy noted that operating costs could be reduced, yet instead of pursuing efficiency, the decision was to raise taxes. We all understand the need for investments in safety and infrastructure. But before asking residents to pay more, the city should first show fiscal discipline. Conduct an independent audit. Conduct an independent audit, ladies and gentlemen. Review staffing and cut waste. That is what reasonable households do. That's what we do. And taxpayers deserve the same accountability. I urge you to protect those living on fixed incomes and manage the city's budget with care and efficiency. And let us never forget that the citizens of Sugar Land sit at the very top of city's management pyramid. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Ashok. The next speaker is Claudine Voss.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Claudine Voss, and I live in Richmond, Texas. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to first thank the staff and volunteers for their dedication to the animals. And Councilor Vanderhaar, you once told me that you don't want Sugar Land to become another Cleveland and Liberty County where stray dogs take over the streets. And I want to thank you for having the foresight, and it's one of the reasons I'm here to share my concerns about the Animal Services budget and emphasizing the need for more transparency and accountability for both animals and taxpayers. And after all, we're all born with compassion. And acting for the greater good is our duty, not a matter of special interest. We should all take a genuine interest in helping these God's creatures as stewards of this domain. And after having worked in corporate America for 15 years, I understand that the benchmarks in the budget give us the roadmap to track progress and adjust to make improvements. But unfortunately, the benchmarks are missing in your current budget that's proposed and also the past budgets. And we cannot determine the shelter's objectives and evaluate the performance of the shelter for the animals. Benchmarks such as the number of intakes, adoptions are all missing. According to the city, they're expected low, but meeting all services levels. It is vague, and I'm sorry to tell you that it's irresponsible, and it raises more questions from the public. And looking back, we can now see that the 83% budget increase and doubling of staff from 22 to 25 did not make sense at all because intakes were reduced by 50% as well as public services and productivity. The performance levels were even lower than the COVID years. So KPIs, I know you guys have talked about it quite a bit, and they are vital for success. And I strongly recommend including those KPIs in the proposed budget before the meeting next week. It is only the right thing to do. And also funding from grants is an exciting thing to a lot of animal folks and to shelters, but somehow that line item is projected to be zero in your proposed budget. And the funding is out there, and I think I have given the examples of Williamson County receiving $900,000 in 2019, and Rosenberg received about $165,000 from 22 to 24. And I believe this requires your attention. It will really help the animals and your budget. And my third question, and I don't think I can finish it,
30
is
seconds.
about your rescue rate. It is extremely low and it has a lot of fluctuations. So I would say, please let us help. Help is available, and we can help you with making improvements for the animals. And it's for the greater good, and everybody's going to be happy, and you won't see me again. I promise. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Claudine. Our next speaker is Pansy Chung.
Good evening. So I'm here tonight because I'm very concerned about the rising euthanasia rate at our city shelter and what that means for taxpayers. Not long ago, Sugar Land voters approved for a GO bond to build a new animal shelter. That bond passed because the campaign promised we would remain a humane, lower kill shelter. We weren't just voting for something bigger, but we're voting for something better. But now with more animals lined up to be euthanized, trust in that promise is slipping. With that, we lose donations, volunteers, and community support, all things that came at no cost to the city. Without that support, cost of running the shelter falls harder on taxpayers. I want to be clear, I'm not saying euthanasia should never happen. There are cases where it's a responsible choice. But we have to ask, are some dogs really behavioral risk, or are they being labeled that way for convenience? Are animals being used as scapegoats to solve space or liability issues? That just worries me. Take one dog, for example. 2 years ago, he had bite history.
Pansy, we need to stick to the budget aspect, please.
All right, well, so I just wanted to make sure that Sugar Land knows that residents voted for a humane low-kill shelter, and if we abandon that promise, we will lose public trust and support, and taxpayer will end up paying more. And I want to thank you all, including city staff, for your service, because I know you guys are put into tough positions a lot of times. So thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Pansy. Our next speaker is Charlene Avery.
Good evening. What I was really going to talk about, I'm not allowed to anymore, so instead of not saying anything, I'm just going to say that I will be speaking at a later date in response to my concerns regarding the shelter, even though it is part of the bond. But I understand and I respect council, and I respect my mayor's request, and I'm going to go sit down now. But you will hear from me again regarding this, because this is my heart, and this means something to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Our next speaker is Gary Foreman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see all of you. My name's Gary Foreman. Most of you know me, and I'm here to speak against the proposed tax increase. My family was political, very political. My brother was undersheriff of Los Angeles County for a number of years. My other brother was the lead homicide investigator for Orange County and he's a lead investigator for Orange County. My father, who was the elected official, his constituents in 1960 numbered about 1 million. So it's a little bit different than what you guys are facing. But he retired in 1971. His constituents numbered slightly under 2 million. Tonight, I'm going to give you some advice that my father gave me, and that's the only thing I'm going to talk about. I don't do well with numbers, but he said to me and to my brothers, "It is easy to raise taxes. The real work is maintaining current rates or lowering taxes without cutting services. That is what we are paid to do." So if you remember, my father, as a career politician, he never lost an election. And that's from 1950 to 1971. And his district was from Malibu in the north to Newport Beach in the south. And some of the cities that you might be familiar with that he was responsible for was Santa Monica, Hawthorne, Long Beach, and Huntington Beach. And it's very important, in my opinion, that you remember what he said. And what he said was, it's easy to raise taxes. The real work is maintaining current rates or lowering taxes without cutting services. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Our next speaker is Lynn Harfam.
Good evening. My name's Lynn Harpum. I live in the city of Sugar Land. I have for, almost 30 years. I think that a city's budget ought to reflect its values. My household budget reflects my values. Our kids didn't have a lot of Nintendo games or things like that because we didn't value that, but we took them on a lot of trips, and they read a lot of books, and that's what we valued. And I think that in a city like Sugar Land, which is, by all accounts, affluent, educated, pretty well heeled in most ways, we have the resources that we need, except for a few populations that don't. As one gentleman spoke earlier, I think there's too heavy of a cost of the tax rate on some citizens, and that ought to be taken into account. We also have other people who benefit from things like a pet pantry in Sugar Land because their household budgets are tight. And we have people and animals who benefit from Sugar Land's policies or don't benefit from Sugar Land's policies. And when a stray comes into this shelter and now apparently has a chance of being euthanized because it reacts to a stressful environment and gives a tiny nip to someone and is now on a euthanization list, that's not right. I don't think that's our city values. That's not the city that I tell my friends about where I live. I don't think that's what we want to reflect. Joel has an official approved foster now as of 5 o'clock tonight. So let's see what the city's going to do about that. I would invite any one of you to reach out to me. I will put you in direct touch with the rescue if you have questions. I think every time this city makes a decision, we are telling the bigger community what our values are. And I'd like to see that taken more under consideration and deep thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Our next speaker is Kyle Stanley.
All right, greetings, good evening to you. My name is Kyle Stanley, and I'm here to address my opposition to this agenda item because, frankly, for what I have seen, I don't see how in the world, considering what's going on with so many people here in Sugar Land and also across the country, how raising taxes is justified when we're all trying to tighten our belts. And I said because from what I have seen in my observations, many of the areas that often have seen tax increases have, contrary to what cities and towns basically try to argue to their constituents, the exact opposite has happened, in which the promised economic growth has not happened because the tax rate increase stood in the way of that growth. And I say it because because we were dealing with a situation where many residents have spoken out, including the man who has ties to California that you just heard from, as well as from small businesses and even some corporations who are trying to look at other cities around the country for site selection, and they may be asking themselves, why would we want to move to this city, which is about to raise taxes for some fairly nefarious reason, when we have another city that is competing that was a lower tax rate and incentives and such that may be more attractive. And that is something I say as we are dealing with trying to replace what we lost with regards to FLIR, trying to move forward with redevelopment at the Char House and vice versa. There was even somebody who justified the tax increase in part because of concerns related to public safety, to which I say it is kind of stretching the truth when you consider the fact that people, of course, no one in this city is going to support any attempt to defund first responders, because and oftentimes when they're used as a pawn to increase the tax rate, it ends up blowing back against the city in the end. I also, and last but not least, if we are dealing with there's some even justified the tax rates because of recent voter approval of many of the bonds in the city, including the animal shelter, to which I say, for the most part, not only did many residents still question the animal shelter to this day, but they even question the fact that it's
30 seconds.
That it is not guaranteed to be a no-kill shelter. And I say that not only has a longtime Sugar Land resident, been here for 35 years, and a resident of District 3 in Sugar Creek, for which Stuart Jacobson's absence tonight is very sore, but I also say it as an aspirational screenwriter.
10 seconds.
That the problems we are facing not only to Hollywood horror, but justify voting against this proposition.
Your time is up. Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Our next speaker is Anna Zafiris.
Hello, good evening, and bonsoir. Members of the council, my name is Anna Lakutis Zafiris, Sugar Land resident. This is my third time speaking within the last month, and again, I vehemently disagree with approving the 2026 budget as it is and approving a tax rate increase on our residents. As many of you have heard, many residents, including our seniors, are extremely concerned about the rising costs in everything we're doing lately, and now to hear that there's a rising cost associated with our property taxes, and for some that claim it's only $8 a month. It's not only $8. Multiply that by 12, multiply that by the price of your home, multiply that by the price of your homeowner's insurance, which I don't know about you all, but mine doubled this year, and I learned that the state legislature has approved a 30 to 40% increase in homeowners insurance. And guess what? You can't avoid not having that if you own a home unless you've paid it off. So the only $8 a month argument falls on deaf ears when people are literally being priced out of their homes. Walking here this evening, I saw this mural that said, "Sugar Land is the sweetest city in Texas." So why are we forcing our seniors and families who are struggling to leave the city they love? This is not right. And there was a discussion about, not to malign anyone, but that the budget is responsible, and the budgeting has been responsible for years, and I beg to differ. And if I may, I typically don't read off my phone, but I think this is important. The municipal and operational budget from the fiscal year 2022 to the fiscal year 2026 has increased by 40%, $95.4 million increase in 4 years. The city manager's salary has increased in 2 years by $110,000, and we are also paying his vehicle allowance, $13,000 a year, over $1,000 to have a car paid. I don't think any of us
30
have
seconds.
that. What I'm trying to say is there are savings in that budget, and I don't understand why we're looking at pay raises for employees that have been capped out of a salary range. I don't even know if that's even legal. If we look at finding the savings, if we really care about helping our seniors and our
10 seconds.
families that are struggling, I suggest you all sit down and find the way to reduce this budget and reduce our taxes, not raise them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Our next speaker is Monica Sophia.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and fellow residents. My name is Monica Setia, and I'm a small business owner here in Sugar Land. I run a real estate brokerage, and I'm here to respectfully oppose the proposed property tax increase. In my business, I see firsthand how rising appraisals and taxes affect our community. Families feel the squeeze, home buyers hesitate, and small businesses struggle with higher rents and operating costs. Every year, I personally fight appraisals for myself and my clients because the appraised values often exceed what homes are actually selling for. That means the city already collects more revenue each year, even without a tax rate increase. The steady rise in appraisals, what we call appraisal creep, has more than kept up with inflation. And while our population has slightly declined, the number of homes and their values continue to increase, guaranteeing more revenue for the city year after year. Given that reality, asking residents for an additional increase feels unnecessary. Now, I do understand the argument for a modest tax increase, perhaps a penny or two, to support expanded services like public safety. But it becomes harder to accept when we see persistent inefficiencies, bloated leadership structure, and executive salaries that far exceed reasonable benchmarks. Before asking taxpayers to contribute more, the city should first address these issues. Transparency and accountability must come first. I know you have received many thoughtful suggestions from residents and experts. You have all the data you need. My request is simple. Please take those seriously before deciding to raise the tax rate. Sugar Land already benefits from appraisal growth, and that should be enough to sustain services and inflation. And I trust this council will do right by the taxpayers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Monica. Linda, is anyone else signed up to speak? Okay. Shalay, do you have
No,
any final?
Mayor, there's
Okay.
not.
Do you have any final comments, Shalay? Oh, one more. Okay, there's one more. Okay. Okay. Our next speaker is Anand Pinto.
Thank you, Mayor, and City Council members for this opportunity. Again, thank you to all the public service folks who serve us and the rest of the city employees who help us in the city of Sugar Land. Appreciate you. Just a couple of comments. I think I've shared a lot of data with all of you and the city manager in terms of trends for the last 5 years. in terms of salaries, in terms of the operating budget, the M&O, as well as headcount. I think a couple of things I'd like to share. One is governance, right? I mean, I'm teaching my class actually this week about governance and oversight and what it means. You have a role and responsibility, you as elected officials, and we as residents are the stakeholders. So you have a duty not to lose oversight, not to lose sight, but to provide oversight to us as residents. And I don't think we see it because the numbers reflect that over the last few years of the headcount in non-public safety, to be clear, which have gone up by 54 in total over the last 2 years. As I said, salaries have increased by 25 million, 12.3 million in 24, and another 12.7 million in 25. So that's pretty significant. And what is the ask from me? I'm opposed, obviously, to the tax rate, but I'm opposed to the M&O tax rate because we as residents did not vote for it. We didn't vote for increased expenditure, mismanagement, and efficiencies as well. I look at the budget, thank you to Shelley and Brian, who I spoke with this afternoon, right? I went through some of the details. There is opportunity in that budget to reduce things. I've got friends who are being laid off later this year in Sugar Land because companies are merging, business is down, economy is down. I work for a corporate organization, and we are given a target to reduce costs. You're given an option. You either want a pay raise or you have to reduce headcount. You have a choice to make. So same choice that you, the mayor, and the city council have to make. Also, I just heard through friends of ours who work at TMC, some of the medical hospitals, they're offering the same thing. They're asking the nurses, do you want a raise or you want a reduction to your 403B plan? Right? So all of us have to choose. Do we buy milk tomorrow or do we don't? We had Mr. Ashok, who's a senior citizen, and you heard 2 other senior citizens last week talk about the same thing. So are you going to abandon the seniors? Are you going to abandon the stakeholders? So harden not your hearts, but have compassion, have empathy for your stakeholders who have elected you and for the seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Linda, is anyone else signed up to speak? Okay. Shelley, are there any closing comments?
No, Mayor, we just, any additional questions from council?
Okay, well, we're not taking questions from council during public hearing. So anyway, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Okay, I make a motion.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
We need to announce that you're voting on it next week. You need to announce that in a public meeting, please.
Okay. So, yes, so we're voting on to adopt the 2025 tax rate on September 16th at 5:30 p.m. Okay, we already had a motion to adjourn. So, okay, make adjourn. Okay, thank you.